All right. So very first thing before we get into introductions is that what's really cool is that us three providers that are presenting, we're all a part of the Arizona APSI chapter, and I included the link in there. We included the link, so if people are interested to learn more, you could go to that link. But also the National Association of People Supporting Employment First, they have their own website as well if you want to learn more about how to be a member. And so go ahead and click. And my name is Vanessa Zuber. I'm the Director of Employment Services for UCP of Southern Arizona's Workability Employment Program. Go ahead.
And I'm Carol Carr, President and CEO of Achieve Human Services in Yuma, Arizona, where we do a whole variety of employment services.
I am Jessica Winchester. Happy Friday, everyone. I am the Associate Director for Vocational Services for Community Outreach Program for the Deaf here in Tucson, Valley Center of the Deaf in Phoenix. Nice to have you all.
Go ahead one more time. So what we're hoping to accomplish in this, I was going to see if Carol wanted to take over that slide. Sorry, Carol.
Sure, I will. And I'm getting notice that I have a narrow bandwidth here, so I hope in the middle of everything I don't get lost here. So, anyway, we have three really great providers today that have been able to maintain and survive COVID here, as all of us have been. They have different approaches to virtual learning, different approaches to being essential providers and such, and how they've stepped it up with some really great practices in that during this time. Some of the areas that we're going to cover are our referral base, how it's diminished, come back up, everybody will share. Some of the best practices, what we've had and shared with you. And the other item that we're going to talk about is the impact on the individuals that we serve. So with that, we're going to move to the next slide.
All right, so we thought we would, because it is Friday, and everybody's taking some time out of their Friday to participate in this webinar, we're going to do a little activity, a Mentimeter activity. So if we could pull that PowerPoint up one more time, Jeff, before you share it with me, before you share the hosting with me. So what we're going to do is all of us are going to think about this. You know, when you think about people with disabilities working during COVID, what has come up for you or what is coming up for you? Because I feel like this has brought multiple layers of thinking during the pandemic for service providers, but also for all of our agencies that we work with and our members and family members. So I'd like for everybody to go to the website, mentee.com, and you could use the code that is on the page. And I already see some words coming through, so I'm going to share my screen. Jeff, is that okay?
Yep, go on ahead.
Awesome. Here we go. So let's see. Can everybody see our little wordscape that's forming? So at the top, if you're just now coming in, you're going to go to mentee.com and you're going to use the code that's above. And we're going to take about probably 3 minutes to get all of our words in there on how we feel about folks with disabilities working during COVID-19. First two words that come to mind. All right. I'm sure you guys didn't think you would be put to work so soon in this webinar. There we go. Very cool. Nice. I think the things to think about, you know, is it safe to work? I think a lot of people are thinking about safety. You know, can people with disabilities be safe in their jobs? What about people who are supporting folks with disabilities in their jobs? All of our coaches, all of our staff, are they safe? You know, what about our employers? Are they safe? Are they doing safe practices? Are people getting jobs? Is that happening? These are all things that I think a lot of people think about when we think about people working during a pandemic. So we're going to take about another minute for folks to get their words up on the screen. The more words, the more colorful, and gives us some dialogue to work with today. So those of you that came in, just came into the room, if you look at the top of the screen, you'll see the www.mentee.com, and you'll punch in the code, and you're going to enter 2 words that come to mind when you think about people with disabilities working during COVID-19. Okay, here we go.
And I've also put the URL in the chat box with the code.
Awesome, thanks, Jeff. Okay, couple more, and we'll get back into our webinar. We do have a lot to talk about today. There's 3 of us providers in Arizona that are sharing our perspectives. So, all right. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. Keep adding words, even if we can't see them because we're going to start the webinar. It's okay to continue to add for those people that came in late, and we may refer back to this because I think it's cool to get that information as we're going through the webinar. So keep feeling free to add whatever words come to mind. I'm going to go ahead and stop share and hand the controls back to you, Jeff, and then go ahead and click, and there'll be another piece that will come up on that slide.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for participating. Getting some really cool words coming up there. Okay, awesome. So, you know, this kind of leads in and touches on, we're hoping that we can, you know, share some ideas in speaking about innovation, and also just sharing ideas with fellow providers in the community on what we have done to sort of work through the pandemic. So we're hoping that this helps, and we're also hoping that at the end of this, there's going to be plenty of time to answer questions. So go ahead to the next slide.
This is great. Thank you so much, Vanessa. And thanks to all of you. I'm glad to see that health and safety were at the forefront of your comments there, because we by far, as an essential provider throughout the entire COVID situation, and still that has been our highest priority, the health and safety of the people that need to work during this time. So I'd like to go to the next slide, please. The main issue that we were confronted with whenever we had COVID was we were an essential provider in many of the contracts that we had. And within those contracts, we had many individuals that we served, that we were training, that were on the contract. So looking at it and stepping back, and this happened really within hours. We logged in, got the Center for Disease Control, the World Health Organization, the local health department, to find out how we maintain compliance as an essential provider. Much to we're very pleased to find out that the activities that we were engaged in met the criteria and surpassed the criteria in many ways as far as health and safety was concerned. So we just continued our practices with emphasis health and safety. Some of those areas that were addressed on a daily, weekly, hourly, minute basis were, number one, the first one, physical distancing, ensuring that in all of our situations we maintain the appropriate distancing with one another. The utilization of personal protective gear, the second one, Jeff, the second one, thank you so much, which includes face masks, disposable gloves, shields if we had to. Some of the more significant cleans we did with sanitation, disinfecting, we had full gear in that we wore. And then frequent hand washing, just constant reminders. And what really I was amazed as walking through the facilities, and that we had hand washing, all these things had already been done. And the last area that we looked at is anybody that even remotely exhibit any signs of any type of symptoms, flu-like symptoms, were sent home. And those that were reported family members that had tested positive were also asked to remain home until they could come back with a negative result or a doctor's note. Let's go on to the next slide. So the next slide, the second part of this was communications. And it has to be consistent communications to all of our stakeholders, from the board of directors all the way down to the direct staff and to the clients that we're serving, the members we're serving, in addition to their family members. So the consistent messaging so that people felt confident that when they were coming to our facility, it was safe, it was secure, it was infection-free, everything that we were doing. So we continuously communicated that to all of our stakeholders. And it was frequent and ongoing, personal calls, coming in, rehearsed trainings and trainings and trainings. It was just ongoing. Next slide, please. So what happened next? Next one. Following the state stay home and stay safe initiative, overnight, our population was reduced from 70 to 22 members. And most were kept home by family members, and understandably so. Second one. It created challenges for us because a lot of the members were part of the workforce. It was part of their training for socialization and to prepare them for community integrated employment. And we were right at the cusp there of getting them, and then this happens. So within 2 weeks, we not only lost a lot of our members, we also lost a lot of staff. Staff remained home because of their children. Staff remained home because they had family members that were ill, or they were taking care of parents and guardians, and they made the choice and decision. And the last slide, the last one, okay. So, and then, so we were constantly addressing compliance, contractual compliance from a headcount resource perspective, and also ensuring that the facility was safe and health. It was a healthy environment, and that we were also had the ultimate care in that for the individuals we were serving. So during the second phase of COVID, we went from 22 members to 10 members. So we became very creative in addressing the workforce. We had reassigned staff that remained, and I have to say, everybody came to the table and worked. It just made me proud to lead such a great team that was innovative, creative, and approached this in ways that I would have never thought of. So, I mean, hats off to that direct line staff. They are like, you know, they're our safety. So what we did do is we have a lot of behavioral health contracts. We engaged our behavioral health members, and they became employed. And we kind of went to some of those that had zero income in it. Let me tell you, these people are so happy to be working. I have such a dedicated and committed workforce, so we're able to diversify from that, that perspective. And the other item that we did is we enhanced our active recruitment. And I have to say, we always had a large amount of individuals coming in that we could interview, even during the situation as it was. Next item, next slide, please. So the second phase, as I indicated, we further reduced, but what we did with the second phase is we just mirrored what we did the first phase. We were able to continue compliance with our contracts, but also employ even a larger diverse group of individuals that had disabilities. And what was great is staff learned how to do that too, because we had to, we were forced to. So oftentimes you have an initiative, you want to go there, you want to make it happen. Sometimes, you know, it's hard to see where it is, but whenever you're like right there and you need it immediately, people reacted and they did the right thing. So, and one thing I do want to emphasize, because of the measures we took immediately and constant training and reassurance and communications, there were no known cases. There were a few cases during the second phase of COVID of individuals and members that tested positive, but it was contracted outside of work. None of it happened while they were at work. The next. And then just ongoing maintaining compliance. We go to the first one. Just ongoing health and safety, as I've already said, the reassignment of staff, and let's go on. Looks like that's a redundant slide. So moving forward, what are we going to do? We continue to have ongoing communications, daily, weekly, whatever it is, not only with our board, the people we're serving, their parents, guardians, DES, DDD, voc rehab, whatever that means, it's ongoing. And we're consistent in our messaging. Prior to people returning to work, we're assessing the situation, ensuring the staffing is there, ensuring that the individual understands returning to work, the criteria of returning to work, ensuring that we're above board. We continue to comply with CDC, WHO, and the local health department. Any changes we've had to make to the work environment was relatively minimal because we were already operating in a way that had very small groups, not large groups in one setting. We also, what this has done is it staged us to be prepared for referrals to voc rehab, and I was so happy to see the MOU come out in May from DSDDD and DSRSA, because it gave us that opportunity with a large group of individuals we know they're ready for community integrated employment to get the referral process going so we can get them out in the community. What I do see is businesses and that have either closed or shut down or working virtually, and in a small rural community, we'll have our work cut out for us in finding businesses and such to refer the individuals to for that employment, but we're ready for it. After what we did with COVID, I don't think our staff feels they can do anything. Next slide, please. So next steps, I just wanted to share in a recent survey that we did and in a virtual visit we had with the officer of the Inspector General's office. One of the clients said to us in their response to the survey, he said, "Will they remember who I am?" So he was with us the entire time down to one of the last 10 standing, and he wanted to know, are my friends going to come back? And are they going to remember me whenever I come back? And I'm going to tell them, yes, they will, because you will never be forgotten. So with that, I thank you so much, and I pass the floor over to Jessica.
Thank you, Carol. That was fantastic. I'm Jessica Winchester. I work for the Community Outreach Program for the Deaf here in Tucson, but also the Valley Center of the Deaf in Phoenix, and I'm the Vocational Services Associate Director. We provide services like supported employment, job search, job coaching, exploration, job training, youth programs. We also do interpreting and counseling. Go ahead and change slide, thank you. So I wanted to give you a little bit of an update of how things have affected COPD. And but then I really want to kind of dive into some resources and some strategies for you. So since COVID, our referrals from the state agencies have seemingly gone down. And so definitely, our staff hours we've had to reduce, the person's service hours, are reduced. We have gone almost completely virtual for our job search services, providing them on Zoom or FaceTime. We have had for multiple years now a summer youth program, employment program that we were not able to do this last summer. So it really has affected us. Go ahead and change the slide. And you can go ahead and click through, yep. So some of the changes, and I guess I want to just address maybe a little bit of a myth here. Since the outbreak of the pandemic, we have had to change, like I said, to maintaining virtual services for employment. There's kind of been this rumor of that employers are not hiring during the pandemic, but I can tell you that I think it's just a rumor. We definitely have a one-stop program, and just in that program alone, we've seen that there are a great deal of individuals still seeking employment and they're getting hired. So we've actually overperformed this year, and you would think, hey, if we had this pandemic for the last 5 months, we wouldn't see these kinds of numbers. But we did see a higher number than the last year. So that means that employers are in fact hiring. Go ahead and click the last one there, Jeff. Oh, I think I just already said that. I want to give you a little quick tidbit too. You know that I work for the community outreach program for the deaf. And one strategy I just want to bring up there is that we're wearing masks now. And so just the best practice for everybody, when you are working with an individual who's deaf or hard of hearing, you know, masks take away a major part of their communication, which is lip reading. And so just think about these things. It's much harder for individuals who are deaf and hard of hearing to be able to communicate. That would be for any type of service or anything, anywhere they're going. So just take a minute and think about that and how that affects somebody who is deaf and hard of hearing. Some ways we can get around that are, you know, Zoom meetings, obviously. It's easier to communicate, as well as maybe clear masks. Sometimes you get a little bit of a glare, so you have to watch that. But just kind of one tip strategy out there. It is related to employment, I think. Okay, go ahead, and these are the employment strategies I'd like to talk to you about. If you can go click all the way through the circle, Jeff, and we'll talk about that. So some employment strategies while we're working virtually. Making sure, this is probably number one, making sure to connect with individuals regularly, at least weekly, via phone, Zoom, wherever you want to connect. I think that makes everybody feel a part of, you know, or connected. So that way everybody knows you're helping, you want to help, you want to be with them. I think sometimes we can feel pretty isolated. Positive communication. Along with that comes practicing that technology. So many people don't really know Zoom, and they might just only recently started using a computer. There's a lot of safety items that you have to bring up with that too. And so maybe spending some time first talking about what is Zoom, how to use it, practicing that. That might be some of the first steps of working virtually and making sure that everybody is. Because guess what? Interviews are happening over Zoom now too. So it's a very important tool for all of our folks to be using. But also, again, the safety part of it, blend your job development with the safety training. Add in those things about, hey, you know, not everybody on the internet is safe. Online job searching is sometimes not safe either. There's a lot of people out there just trying to get you and your information. So coach those individuals as you're going about your job development and job search. In regards to job search and job exploration, what I found is that creating a discovery or customized employment discovery binder can really help. So making packets for individuals and being able to deliver them and maybe personalized towards what those individuals are looking for. And then going over those via Zoom, or maybe you can do a email with those items rather than a binder. That's one area that we've used. Also, for individuals who learn better through activities, you might do a card-based discovery activity. So what I mean by this is that the project is like a binder with cards that can be physically moved from a Ziploc bag to another. Staff print several different categories of items using discovery form prompts and laminating them and packing tape. For example, if you start bagging, has cards such as walking or playing with pets, sweeping, cooking. There are two other bags that are like and dislike. So then you can put those items in the like and the dislike. It helps if you have to meet together to be a little bit more safe, if you're doing some social distancing, or you can utilize this via Zoom too, if you guys have used the whiteboard feature or sharing applications. The next thing that we found is really helpful is creating your own virtual tours. So what I mean by that is that you as the job developer might go out and take pictures of different places and then come back and create a virtual tour that you can share with the individuals that are looking for jobs or doing job discovery. You can do multiple different formats, you know, either video or PowerPoint, so whatever you're most comfortable with. There's a lot of different formats out there. You can also, if you don't want to go out in the community, you really don't want to be out potentially catching corona, then you can look on the internet, find pictures of the different types of places to work. Do that, utilize that to create these virtual tours that individuals are really not getting right now by going out. The next thing we also do is interview practice over Zoom. Like I mentioned before, employers are doing a lot of Zoom virtual interviews, and it is very hard. So transforming your interview practice to incorporate Zoom and regularly assigning different staff members to practice with them will really help them be able to manipulate Zoom, first of all, and second of all, be able to ace that interview. The next thing is job coaching. Job coaching is definitely a hard one right now. I do have some resources for you in a bit, but a lot of times we do have to go out to the site to job coach still. It's an essential service. Making sure that you're wearing a mask and protective clothing is, first of all, important. However, this is the time, even more so now than ever, to create those natural supports. So when you are not there, another essential worker who is working with your folk can actually help them so that there isn't this need. It's a perfect time to create that natural support right now, contacting and teaching that individual who to contact when they have an issue at their work. So that would be another strategy. Go ahead to the next slide, Jeff. Tech resources. So these are just a couple that I have found and used a little bit, but I wanted to share because I really feel like they are good ones. One of the ones I can tell you is Freedom Scientific is offering for a limited time some programs that are really essential for individuals who are blind or visually impaired. That would be like JAWS, Zoom, or Zoom Text, sorry, and Fusion. So they can go in and get some of the software that's needed for free by signing up. So just wanted to give that out there for you. The next one is not free, but MeMinder is an app for your phone that you can actually, it takes pictures like a to-do list, and it's a talking pictures. So it's a video modeling tool for people who need help with reminders, sequencing. So you're trying to create that natural support for individuals with disabilities to make sure that they get that before they need to go to somebody, creating that independence. You can use it for work, school, home, anything can be pre-programmed. It's very simple. It does cost, but it's probably about $70 for the whole year. So if you look at it that way, it's really not that bad of a cost. Go ahead and go to the next slide. All right, this is another resource. It's actually called Life Sherpa, and during COVID, some organizations, if you go through the process, will actually get a free membership for Life Sherpa. It's a cloud-based life and job skills training management program or platform, and it helps you know, with disability services and the agencies and the people that they serve, both. It is embedded with video calling, messaging system, robust analytics tool. You know, you can have a progress for each individual, so you can get updates too as a provider. It really promotes the independence while they're at work, and it's great. Go ahead and click, Jeff, if you don't mind. All right, so I just want to end again and say that, you know, for those who are job searching, many are afraid that they don't have, because they don't have the correct information. They're not educated on what's going on right now. They're not seeing the connection there. You know, people who are job searching, they're still looking for a job, and that hasn't changed. And we are essential providers, and that hasn't changed. So what's happening? Why are we not seeing more referrals? Why are we not, making the connection there that employers are hiring, people want jobs still, and it can be done? That's where we need our help right now. That's where we need to educate and make sure that we're informing individuals who are job searching, who are our referral sources, and also, parents, guardians, that it can be done, and that it's not just a myth, it's not just a rumor, that people are hiring and they can get jobs. Because not right now, I think people need it more than ever. All right, with that, I'll turn it over to Vanessa.
You're muted, Vanessa.
There we go. I was just saying that's a tough act to follow. Gonna have to really get it going here. So I wanted to remind everybody too about the mentee meter activity. And so I believe Jeff put it in the chat box. And so it's basically what words come to mind when you think about people with disabilities during COVID-19 working. And so we're asking everybody to add 2 words that come to mind. And the code is listed as well in the chat box. So please, everybody participate, because what we're going to do is we're going to actually include this in the PowerPoint material that is going to get sent out to everybody. So anyways, as mentioned earlier, I'm the Director of Employment Services for UCP of Southern Arizona's Workability Program. And I think that one of the things that I learned, because I feel like I learned a lot from this experience with dealing with a pandemic, is that getting everybody's buy-in to make the shift. So making the shift, meaning into a virtual world, but also changing the way in which we think about our members and working, and reassuring families that that everything is okay, but also having the patience, because I know it is very fearful. It does bring up a lot of feelings, because we're all worried about our safety. And so I think that, again, I love that both Carol and Jessica touched on, some different safety measures that they've used to be safe when you are going out in the community, and also for our members being in the community as well. So go ahead and click to the next slide. Thanks, Jeff. So this is a picture of one of our members who had gotten a job at a pizza joint earlier in the year, and it was really interesting working with him and also the employer, and sort of all of us having this dialogue, this discussion about how are we going to be safe, that his goals shouldn't change because there's a pandemic. So we had these conversations about, we're going to still move forward with his job goals. They didn't, lay him off. They kept him on. And so, how do we support this during a pandemic? And I think it really is about communication, like all of us getting together as a team, the employer, our staff, the family, if the family's involved, the member, our VR counselors and our support coordinators, like we all are a team. And so all of us working together to make this happen, right? To have this support. So I think the big thing is that we want all of our members to be informed of their choices and also how to be safe, so they can make the choice whether or not they want to work. And I think that was also something that really I just love, that a lot of our members were like, we want to work. We don't want to be home. So we, again, we put all those measures in to be safe. I'm not going to recap all that because I feel like both Carol and Jessica touched on it, and we did a lot of the same things, making sure we review PPE, making sure we have processes in place, making sure we have a screening tool, that everybody is bought in and ready to go around providing the support that is needed and during the pandemic. The other thing I want to comment before we go on is we were really fortunate that we didn't have to furlough any of our staff. We kept all of our staff on in our agency and in our program. And I felt like, we had to make the shift really fast. So next slide. I put together like a little timeline because I felt like it was really interesting thinking back in this very short period of time. This has been about 6 months now of what we have been through. And I'm sure a lot of you who are providers can maybe relate to this, or maybe some of the things that both Carol and Jessica brought up. But in March, it's like we had to just immediately make that decision in order to keep everybody safe. Immediately it was that, okay, we got to go virtual. And so, of course, we had a lot of staff that were like, well, I've never used Zoom. I don't know anything about like Kahoot or, any of these applications. So we had to really do a lot of scrambling as a team, as an admin team, to think in a big way, like, how are we going to do this? How are we going to be fast? But also, how are we going to get all the information or all the support that we need from our RSA counselors and our support coordinators through DDD? And then, as Carol had mentioned, you also have to get the support from your directors. So it was really a lot of time spent in March, like scrambling and training, like a lot of training. So anyways, we just had to make a decision on the platform we were going to use. We developed a remote session tips tool for all of our staff, and I would be more than happy to share that. I don't have it here because I can send it out later. And then we also developed an FAQ for families and members because we needed to get the messaging out. This is how we're doing it. Because not only did we provide the job coaching and development services, we also were delivering a transition a work readiness or a job training curriculum. So we really had to scramble to get these pieces in place. And that was like around March the 23rd. And I think it was just more like everything was chaotic. Nobody really knew what we were doing. I felt badly for like our funding agencies because I feel like they were scrambling. What are we going to do? How do we guide everybody? I mean, it was just sort of crazy, I think, for the first month. And then 325, we started seeing, like later on in the week, we started seeing people calling us saying, we've been laid off. It wasn't that many people, but we started getting those calls. And also from family members saying, we're not comfortable having our adult kids out in the community. So that was really interesting for us as well, like dealing with that. And then when we did make that shift to virtual, we had a lot of families that were unsure. Well, how is that going to work? My kids have never had to use a computer independently. Some of them don't know how to operate a mouse. So then it just started bringing up, oh gosh, we got to develop a training for like families and our members on how to actually operate their tech and what are all the tech options. And also we started realizing too that we needed to have a comprehensive training on COVID safety practices. So we also had to implement those measures, especially I think when we were working with our population cognitive intellectual disabilities. They needed a more visual type of, it just was different than how we would necessarily work with somebody who didn't have those issues going on. So it was really an interesting time for us. So then in March, like towards the end of March through May, we started seeing a decrease in referrals. And I just think personally, I don't think it's like one group's, I just think it was because of what was going on. You have all of these variables. You had families not wanting to do anything. You had some employers struggling to see, I should keep these people on. You have, what I mean? There's all these parts happening, and I think DDD and RSA just adjusting. So the referrals went down because I think that's just what happens when we're dealing with a pandemic that we're not used to dealing with. So I think, again, we decided to do those trainings. We had our little mini webinars where we invited our family members to come in, and we taught them about the technology they could use, the expectations, because I think families need to understand what the expectations are going to be. We also would have conversations with VR counselors and our support coordinators on how we were doing things, that it was going to be virtual, so they knew what to expect. So we spent a lot of time instituting those, and the admin staff would take turns meeting with the families and doing this. And I guess that's really important, like I had mentioned earlier, is having that buy-in, is having all your staff trained, speaking the same language, communicating in the same way, so everybody understands what you're doing, because it was so crazy and chaotic. And then I feel like from June to present, we started seeing referrals coming through in June, because I think people were beginning to see, oh, this, some people felt more comfortable. And I think employers were relaxing a bit because they had developed their processes. So everybody by this point, we've all had time to develop some of our processes and what we were doing, so it wasn't so crazy. I think a big thing was getting employers on board to attend we did a workshop where we had guest speakers. And that is one way too to get people to know about you. So we're going to talk a little bit about outreach, because our outreach never stopped. So during the pandemic, we kept doing outreach. It's really important that you have to continue with that as job developers. So anyways, next slide. All right, so, go back a slide.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's all right. All right, so I think that this is a picture of, again, one of our employees. He's an admin staff who helps out with our outreach. And as I was saying, outreach should never stop during this time frame. And so he did a lot of work around helping to pull our employers together for the training that we did. And we basically had them support us with our mock interviews, with our giving tours of where they work and who they work with and what kind of jobs that they have, and being available for informational interviews. So we made sure that everybody had their scripts ahead of time. When we were doing the training, we talked about, we had to do some disability etiquette training, because some of the businesses we were bringing in, they had never worked with anybody with a disability. So, and this is great because we were able to do it all remote. Next slide. As I mentioned, we were able to get a lot of this, really cool interactive sessions in place for our job development, because, you could do the typical things like, we're going to work on an application, we're going to share screens, we're going to identify careers that you have an interest in, we're going to, look up some videos, we're going to have guest speakers come in. But I also think it was helpful to have these scripts ready to go so people could really get information. We would have people come in and even talk about topics of the week. So we would have topics that relate to employment ready to go. So I think that if you can, it doesn't matter. If you have connections, use those connections that you have, and bring those people in. And because it's remote, you can pretty much use anybody around the country. So don't get stuck with what you have locally. Bring in folks that you know from all over, because I think that also adds more perspectives to what you're doing. So we used, go ahead, next slide. So these were a lot of the types of applications that we used to really make our sessions, our one-on-one sessions, really robust, because I do feel that there's some folks that have a hard time with virtual. with sitting in on a virtual session and really understanding what is happening. You need to have lots of ways in which you're teaching a topic or going over employment resources or employment, like job related tasks. So JotForm, the very first one, is huge because we use that for a lot of, we used it for our survey when we were trying to, recruit partners to participate in our sessions. We use it for fillable forms to make it just easier for everybody. There's a fillable form that people can use. JotForm also allows you to have a digital signature. So that way your members can sign off on things. It just makes it easier. And they do have a free version of JotForm. Kahoot and Flipgrid are great to use if you want to have actual activities that the person can participate in. You all got to experience Mentimeter today, so this is a great way if you wanted to get someone really thinking about what they're doing. You could get them to participate in a wordscape. How many words can you come up with that describes what your career interests are? Utilizing One Stop and ONET, huge resources there. Maybe a lot of you know about it, but there's tons of videos, tours. You could do your labor market research through ONET. Lead Center. I love Lead Center because they have a lot of resources on activities or ways in which you can do more of self-advocacy, how to lead your own meetings, how to make choices and advocate for yourself on the job. Pete is great for you as a business owner because they have a lot of accessible technology available. And then the Employer Assistance Resource Network, also very similar to LEAD. They just have a lot of information on how to encourage the person you're working with to take control of their life. The Java Accommodation Network, Ask Jan, awesome. Skills to Pay the Bills, great activities in there. You can just go in there and borrow some of those activities. The 401 disclosure, if you're, everybody should learn this if they're going to be applying for jobs, doing interviews. There's some great activities that you can have the people you're working with do in a job development session. IamDetermined.org, great resources on self-determination. Padlet is cool because if you wanted to build a timeline or you wanted to have people work on ideas as building ideas, having more participation, it's a great application that allows all of you to work together. And then Zoom and Google Hangouts. I mean, Zoom's been great. I know they had some security issues, but you can control that. Google Hangout or Meets is great. I'm sure there are other platforms out there. And then Google Classroom. If you want to have more structure, all of that works to provide a much more robust session. All right, next slide. So I focused kind of more on resources and just sort of what we did, but I feel like all three of us share kind of the same, in the ways in which, like all those strategies that Jessica brought up are some of the same strategies that we use. So really look at that page because I thought that was awesome, Jessica, how you really laid it out, and it's really helpful, I think, for job coaches. But if there's any questions, I think we have 10 minutes for questions.
Thank you, ladies, so much. That was a lot of great information. So any of you guys, anyone that's been on, we typically take this next 8 minutes to ask about any questions you might have. If you didn't put them in the chat box, feel free, as Jeff said, to unmute yourselves and let us know if you have questions about anything. And also, of course, we always ask our administrators. I saw Chris Willis on with BDB and Margaret Corcoran, as well as Adam Robson from Access, our Medicaid program, of course, Krista Mackey with Voc Rehab and RSA. I don't know if you guys want to add anything. We always give you that opportunity to the leaders, and you also have your leaders on if you need to ask them any specific questions as providers or those through funding, things of that nature. So feel free, it's your opportunity now. I mean, for the audience, and then the leaders, of course, if you want to add anything. quiet group on this Friday. Kristen? Can you guys hear? I don't think we can hear you. Can you guys hear Kristen?
This better?
It's kind of, yeah,
There
much
you go.
better.
All
There you
right,
go.
thank you. I forget, I moved the microphone up to take a sip of my coffee and then I forget to put it back down. So
Thank you.
just thank you guys for sharing your information. I know you've done a lot of work and really appreciate it. And interesting to hear all of you talk about your placements. We too exceeded our placement goals for the year. And so there are jobs out there, and really, I think employers are very keen to explore other options that they may not have explored in the past. And so thank you for kind of thinking outside of the box and being innovative in the services that you provide. Definitely have seen that be beneficial. So kudos to all of you, and appreciate you sharing your knowledge with everybody else.
Thanks, Kristen. We appreciate that. Does anyone else have anything to add? Yeah, lots of great resources for really any audience. If you're an educator or if you actually are working in the adult provider world, I think you could infuse a lot of those resources into your classrooms as well. If you happen to be on and you're a teacher or you're an educator or working with young people, I guess I should say. So quiet Friday. Normally it's very much.
Can I add something of the group?
Yeah,
Is that okay?
please.
So after hearing the webinar, I would be curious how everybody feels about, again, that question that we posed in the beginning of the webinar about how people feel about people with disabilities working during COVID. I would be curious to hear if anybody maybe has thought a little bit differently about it, or if people are still feeling the same, and also to participate in the Mentimeter activity that's in the chat box.
So if anyone wants to add anything in the chat or go off mute. And it has taken these ladies, as you can tell, a little bit to get where they are. We didn't expect this to happen in March or April, that they would be this far along, or that they would be where they are today. So keeping that into consideration, that it does take some time, and working through all of that in your head of what really are the needs after you find out what's not working or what is working, and starting to work with people virtually. So I don't know if anyone might be our most quiet group of all 10.
Well, this is
I wanna add something.
Sure. Leah?
My name is Leah. I am an employment specialist for a behavioral health group, and I work with youth and I work with adults. And I just want to say that if it wasn't for this, I would have all of the knowledge that I have now. I've been able to have so much more resources, and it's been so helpful.
Oh, well, we are so appreciative of that. I believe my boss, Wendy Parent-Johnson, is on, and I know we are really, and with the leaders that I just mentioned, we're really trying to answer to the needs of you all as a neutral entity that can provide this across Arizona. And thanks for saying that, Leah, because pretty soon we're going to run this through September, and at some point we may send out a survey to all of our participants, just a quick one, and mostly to our providers, about what's missing or what we might be able to provide in the future that could be helpful. We're all learning from each other, and as you guys, if you've been on this series, it's not just our state, we're learning from other states too. It's that time we got to come together in this village. You know, we all have that person in the middle that we serve, the person who has a disability, and we need to, we realize that it's not done by one person, as I think Vanessa alluded to earlier. It's a huge partnership, and we just couldn't be more thankful. I don't know that you guys realize that Arizona's leadership is some of the strongest in supporting all of you. You know, the Kristens and the Chris Willises and the Margarets and Nicolettes of the DDD world, and Adam and Dara and all of them, and Access, you know, they're really trying to support you guys and make changes as they need to and get information out to their individuals that they serve or their staff to make sure that we continue to move things through and to the extent possible in getting people out there working successfully.
Yeah,
So,
I just wanted to let you guys know because I've been able to use so much because of you guys. I really have.
That's really awesome to hear. And I know Jeff put in the landing page for anybody who might be new on this. We are posting every one of these recordings and lots of resources on that landing page so that you can go back and share with your staff. And it's great to hear these outcomes too, that Vanessa and these providers are seeing more outcomes in our VR agency. That's really exciting on a Friday to hear, especially with everything going on. So if no one else wants to add anything, it's 12 o'clock. Oh, thank you, Jeff. There's a quick survey link in the chat box. If you guys get a second to click on that, we'd appreciate it. It's a very quick survey. With that, we hope you have a safe and happy, healthy weekend. And once again, thank you to our presenters and to our leaders of the state systems. And you all have a great weekend. Thanks again.